Hello.
Hi,
Ah,
Shandana. How are you?
हेलो हाय हाय मोहम्मद अली नकवी साहब जनाब। कैसे हैं आप?
मैं बस बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ। आप कैसी हैं? सब खैरियत?
बिल्कुल आपकी दुआएं हैं। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर मेकिंग टाइम फॉर मी एंड मे आई कॉल यू मो प्लीज।
Please do, of course, Shandana.
I thought पहले let me be formal like the gentleman in the BBC interview with you that I was watching last night,
Sure.
जिन्होंने पहले आपको अली बोला फिर उनकी समझ में नहीं आया मैं क्या बोलूं। बट खैर, let me
Yeah.
start at the beginning, Mo. And first of all, congratulations on the success of Turning Point, the Netflix original documentary series you've most recently co-produced. Uska season 2 chal raha hai, The Bomb in the Cold War.
Yes. G.
How does it feel to be in a Netflix top 10 list, though it's not your first time, right?
Actually, the first season was also in the top 10 for a few weeks, and this one was also in the top 10. So, Allah ka shukr, I'm blessed. But honestly, to be on any list with Love is Blind, I find that a monumental accomplishment because personally, I would also watch Love is Blind over any of the stuff I make.
Season
Uh-huh.
1 was Turning Point, 9/11, and the War on Terror.
Yeah,
Do you think it's
exactly.
fair to say that since you started making films, your work has been circling 9/11? Specifically, how you think 9/11 shaped you as a storyteller?
This is a vast question. It's not just storyteller, but also a person. But I mean, look, I was in New York when 9/11 happened. It happened in front of me.
Hmm.
So that seismic shift was a visceral experience for me. And there was a lot of fallout I experienced being detained at JFK, being interrogated by the FBI multiple times, and just overnight being basically becoming a villain. And I I think there's two things to kind of take into things. So there was a genuine interest for me to actually delve deeply into this stories, right?
Hmm.
Because my story, when it comes to religious extremism, and I don't even like using the term religious extremism because I think it can be intellectually facile. But let's just talk about the intersection of Islam and politics, right?
ठीक है.
And I don't want to use Islam here as like a faith-based thing because I think it's not. I think it's more being used as a veneer to gain more power by vested interests. That was front and center for me even pre 9/11, ever since I can remember, since I was 5, 6 years old, since I was a Shia growing up in Karachi, and I was told that there's something wrong with me. And I was
Yeah.
vilified at that age too.
Sorry.
And and it was Benazir and Nawaz Sharif, the 90s, sectarian violence was at a high, you know. My uncle was killed. There was extended members of my family that escaped. We even left for 2 years and went to New York when it became really, really dangerous.
I'm so sorry.
So that to me was already front and center. It was something that I had like keenly been interested in and not interested in because it was kind of forced down your throat. And I come from a privileged background. I'm lucky enough, but even in places like grammar school, where they're like, "Oh, tum to Shia ho, tum to kafir ho," you know, and this is as young as grade 3. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And it wasn't just me. I even saw how the children would treat some of the Christian kids who would go to scripture class when we were at Islamiyat. And that's just reality, whether people want to admit that or not. But that's what it was. So that was pretty
Yeah.
front and center for me. And when 9/11 happened, I didn't see it as the West versus Muslims and Islam. Initially, that wasn't my reaction. I was like, look, it's these like crazy political Islam bigots using people to spread their message, and these are the people that we have to kind of investigate. And but then suddenly that nuance was obviously lost. I underestimated even at that age how ignorant just many Americans and many in the West were about Islam, about Pakistan, about these political distinctions and nuances.
Absolutely. No, I think I completely understand where you're coming from. My mother is Christian, so I experienced firsthand what you're
Right.
speaking about. And I've seen its impact on her. So it does shape you as a person. And I absolutely do not wish to deviate from the seriousness of that. With 9/11, we had to face, as storytellers, a question about what are stories for? What is a story meant to do? For me, a story is a way of coding a human being. And I'm wondering, as a storyteller, whether your choice of stories changed after 9/11 in any way and was pushed towards political Islam because the market demanded that. Because I know that in literature, for example, fiction writers who were writing books or writing stories which had themes around terrorism and political Islam were suddenly finding more publishers than those who weren't.
Sure, and you can I think you can argue that, and you can also counter argue the other thing. I mean, the reason I was kind of giving you a bit of context is that it happened to coincide with my drive to be, you know, giving a nod to my activist roots, and for
Mm,
me, investigating political Islam and to showcase and highlight for world media this distinction between Islam generally and quote unquote terrorists or was really important because I thought the stories that were coming out about Pakistan, about the Muslim world were totally like stupid, for lack
yeah,
of a better. I mean, it was the post-Bush Cheney narrative, very binary, good versus evil, just the most stupid and facile things. And we're like, this is not true. We have to delve deeper and investigate a much more nuanced picture. And that's what drove me as a storyteller and a filmmaker. And I kind of got to do that, you know. Was it whether the market demanded it or not? I've been so fortunate and blessed that I've pretty much I like to call myself a brat because I kind of am a brat. I mean, I've gotten to do whatever it is that I wanted to pursue as a story, right? And every
mm,
story that I pursued, I mean, Shandana, if you remember the first time we met, our creative relationship was centered around a film at that time, which was a narrative film called Shame. Eventually, I made that into a documentary, right?
bilkul. Yeah.
was was about what? It was about Mukhtara Mai, and it was a
Yes.
hero. It was a hero story about how she overcame personal tragedy, right?
Yeah.
To become this human rights icon. And why did I want to do that? Because frankly, I didn't have the verbiage at that time or the strength to really talk about my own history as a sexual abuse survivor, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it was totally natural to make that story, and that's the reality of it. That's the reality of any of the films that I've made. I find them very integrally tied to what I wanted to do. It's only, I would say, much later into my career, like 10, 12 years later, that I made a conscious shift that I didn't want to do just this very political based films because I'm more than just that. I cannot be just one specific niche. Like I personally think I'm a really funny person. Like I wish I got to do that kind of stuff. But
So I'm gonna
so,
have to take your word for that because I've watched most of your films and I haven't been laughing.
no, 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 I know
No, that was
that.
a joke, Mo. That was a joke.
And
Like,
that's correct.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. But
Oh,
I look, so I think that you're going to places that I want to go before I even get there, which means that you're smarter than me. So I'm going to have to try and catch up. I was actually
oh,
going to bring up Shame next as well, because Shame, as you pointed out, was the first of your big films. And
gee.
it followed the trajectory of Mukhtar Mai from victim of so-called honor-based violence to activist.
Mhm.
That film was the first of your deep dives into individuals who have shaped Pakistan as much as Pakistan has shaped them. Watching Shame again just now, I
Mhm.
noted the seeds of all the things that have bloomed in your subsequent documentaries: injustice, violence amongst the marginalized, and at the heart of it, a person that is filled with rage and unafraid. At some point in Shame, a journalist says, I think the reason the media is giving this case so much attention is Mukhtar Mai's own character. How do you know that a compelling character will also be compelling on screen?
Oh, I think I can, there's no like real set rule. I think it's just kind of an intuitive thing that I kind of pick up on. Mukhtar Amai, for example, when I first met her, she was very reserved and understated, but there was like a real amazingly strong force or something that was emanating from her, and I immediately could feel it. You could feel it when you entered the room, you know?
Mm,
And I think I picked up on that. And the more, obviously, when I'm following someone for such a long time, you know, you form your own relationship, you become friends, you become closer, you know. So that's kind of, that's the gift that I kind of have when I, in the earlier part of my work, when I was doing observational films, where I'm following a specific character for so long, or a specific subject, they really kind of bloom and they really kind of open up. And maybe the truth is everyone's compelling. I know that that's like a crazy statement, but like,
I don't know, Mo. I
no,
don't
but
know, but
if
okay.
you follow anyone, everyone, right? Like everyone has some humanity, and
Yes.
the more you follow someone, you get to kind of see that. And I'm taking the best bits of what I have following someone for such a long time, and putting those together. So I'm amplifying and highlighting those specific moments that make them compelling, and whatever. So maybe that's what it is.
She was really remarkable though, she was functionally illiterate, but she had memorized the Quran
Yeah,
and she just wouldn't give up.
she eventually went to her own school and even graduated. So, that's kind of
Oh,
amazing.
fantastic. How is she? Because I read that you're still on the board of the Mukhtar Mai Women's Organization, which she's
Yeah,
running, she
I'm
set
still
up.
in touch with her. Mashallah, says she's doing well. She has two children now. They're grown up. She married her the policeman in charge of
Oh, wow, that's so
her.
sweet.
They've been married for a very long time. She's living a very happy life. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
That's
I
amazing.
knew that. You didn't know? Okay, well, yeah. Why would
No, I
anyone?
did not
Anyway,
know that. That is amazing.
they've been together for a while. Her son is, I guess his son must be in her teens by now, and the boy and her girl is probably late. She's probably done with high school by this point, I think.
I am so moved by knowing that. That's
Yeah,
Can I tell you
yeah.
something? It's a strange thing. It's a strange thing to be sharing, but my father died a few years ago, and he had Alzheimer's, and so we kind of lost him while he was still alive. And he
Mhm.
kept a briefcase locked, and after he died, I investigated it, and he had some personal papers in it,
Mhm.
including a letter from me, and the Supreme Court judgment on the Mukhtar Mai case, which came as a supplement to the Dawn newspaper when it was issued, because it was a case that gripped the entire nation. And
Yeah.
this man had kept that judgment in a locked briefcase. I was
Wow.
expecting the bizarre because he had Alzheimer's, but I just sat there and I didn't know what to feel. But that was the sort of case it was.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why, but yeah. But yes, that was a wonderful film, and I'm so happy to know that she's living her best life. She really is. So I'd like to move from the first big documentary you directed onto the last one, which
I
is
would
The
like to say
Accused.
one thing to
No, sorry,
answer.
of course, go on.
It kind of just like it kind of came to me, and it makes sense. I guess what makes a compelling character is that they're able to somehow transcend whatever is being imposed on them,
Hmm.
or their circumstances, to try to achieve something greater and bigger than themselves. And here was a woman who, for all intents and purposes, was a victim, and the world wanted to cast her as a victim. And she refused to do that, because even now, after the horrendousness that she suffered, she was still able to find love, and she was still able to start a family. And I get a little emotional about this, but that to me is heroic. It's something
No,
I
I can
aspire.
understand why. Yeah, I can understand why one would get emotional about that. Are you ever tempted to do a follow-up with her so that more people know how that story? develops.
I think that it doesn't, she's happy the way she is. She doesn't want to, she never wanted to be in the public spotlight or anything, but she understood the importance of it because she wanted to change a system, and that system very specifically in her village. And she did, mashallah, she really is a force, and she did that, and
Mm,
um I was still involved with working with her. I continue to work with her even several years, like 10, 12 years, 15 years, even after the film was done, where she was having funding problems with running the schools, and us trying to get like development and literacy, and some of these like Pakistan diaspora organizations that took over her schools to streamline, because
mm.
otherwise it was all personally on her. It's something that the government should have been doing. And but anyway, that's a different tangent. But yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
that's maybe what I find compelling is people who inspire me, or something that I wish I had in myself, or maybe something I do have in myself, and I just I project it onto others or something. I don't know.
No, I think you do have the same thing in yourself, which is the desire to change the world and to make it a better place. And I remember her saying in her first interview, and this is in your documentary as well, when she's asked what will it take to change things, and she says education, which, she ensured then for the very people who had oppressed her. And second, women realizing they're also human beings.
Yeah,
And I took a lot of pride in her getting that, feeling that way, and knowing that simply from the strength of having read the Quran,
yeah,
right? So it came from actually her faith rather than some sort of secular westernization or whatever. What is usually ascribed to women now, unfortunately, in our society when they say, "Excuse me, I am also a human being." So, but
yeah. That is unfortunate. Where
yeah.
there is also like a little, again, please explain, please buzz me if I'm mansplaining or speaking out of turn, but there is like a non-intersectional white feminism, which I think misses that mark. That, you know, our women, our sisters are very much empowered in their own right without
Yes,
the help,
they are. Have you read
colonial.
Rafia Zakaria's Against White Feminism by any chance?
God, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that
Also,
book
I
too.
also love Rafia. She's awesome. Yeah.
I haven't met her, but I've read her book, and I'm not sure I want to meet her because I don't like meeting my heroes, unlike you, who then meets them and makes films about them. I like to admire people from a distance.
I mean, to be fair, I also meet like people who I think are absolutely terrible, and I make friends with them too, following them for years.
Yes, speaking of that, let's talk about Maulana Abdulaziz, who is,
I
you
am
know,
so fond of him. I know I'm not supposed to be. Like, I am like
there
so
is
fond
something
of him.
strangely endearing about that man. I will not
So
lie.
endearing.
It's,
No, it just
and you
makes
know
me,
what
I
it is?
और बताए ना मौलाना साहब हम जहन्नुम के आग में जलेंगे. Yes, yes, very good, very good. और बताए. He's so fun. I
इतने
mean,
प्यार से
yes.
बोलते हैं ना कि आप जहन्नुम में जलेंगे.
So cute.
Among the Believers, yeah, what a film. But Among the Believers se pehle mere ख्याल में I'd like to start with The Accused, Damned and Devoted. I actually
Sure.
think more that there's a trilogy, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think that there's a trilogy of films, which is The Accused, Among the Believers, and Inshallah Democracy. I think this is a trilogy about Pakistaniyat. I don't know if you
Sure.
started out making a film about a trilogy about Pakistaniyat, but for me this is a trilogy
Oh,
about
I
Pakistaniyat
would
because it
definitely
has the
include,
best and worst.
well, I would definitely
Sorry.
include Mukhtar in that. So it's like a
Yeah.
quartet or whatever that word is.
Quartet, but I don't know. I feel there's something different in tone from Shame and
Sure.
these three.
Sure, sure. That's true.
And I think it's because of the how intrusive political Islam is in these three films.
These three. Yeah. Yeah,
That's why I would group them
that's
together.
that's true. That is actually a good point you make. Correct.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm of some use in this conversation.
No,
So,
no, you're
in The
very
Accused, that you examine whether Pakistan's blasphemy law really shows love for the Prophet. It's an unsettling, haunting film. It's haunted by the ghosts of those murdered in blasphemy's name, including Mashal Khan. Rashid Rahman, Shahbaz Bhatti, Salman Taseer, Asif Iqbal Bhatti, among others. And it's
Hmm.
also haunted by the specter of the late Khadim Hussain Rizvi, who was the founder of the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, or TLP.
Hmm.
Which material was harder to work with, the footage of Khadim Hussain Rizvi or footage like that of the brutal slaying of Mashal Khan?
I mean, the archival footage was really gruesome. I mean, I'm sure your audience and yourself have probably just seen even small snippets or indicative footage online through social media. So it's very gruesome and it's very brutal. And it's not just Mashal Khan. There's also was there was a subject in my film whose cousin Sajjad, sorry, got brutally beaten and essentially had sexual violence performed on him by the Lahore police. And he he gives a he gives an on the spot interview that one of the local journalists got as and we used as an archive footage. So I mean, there's a lot of these kinds of snippets that exist, and you know what was so crazy about that is that the archival footage that I used, it's stuff that all of Pakistanis have seen and have been seeing while they're in Pakistan in the news. The key difference, and one of the highlights, especially in the last few years for me, was right after COVID, I finally got to show that film in Karachi, my hometown, right? And showing any of my work in Pakistan is a huge. I mean, I can't tell you how elated I feel because, you know, most of my work is banned and
Yeah,
especially in Pakistan. So for me to share it with Karachi audiences, Pakistani audiences, my friends, my families, and in a public setting is great, first of all. And
yeah,
the reactions are so much more nuanced and more profound that that what I get back. But when I showed it there, all all of one of the first comments, I think Nazia Sayed Ali made it, who you know, the Dawn writer,
yeah.
and a really close friend and a colleague of mine, and she actually was a co-producer on Among the Believers as well. I believe she said it, and if she didn't say it, then maybe her friend did, and so I apologize in advance. But they said that
Mm,
we've all seen this archival footage, but this is the first time that it was stitched together in a way like this that really makes it front and center, you know, which
yeah,
which which many of us, when we're actually living in Pakistan and when we're right in the middle of the quagmire, we might not have that. We're almost like disassociated, you know.
yeah.
We're going through and experiencing the trauma right now, so we're a little numb to it until you actually step out and see it, and you're like, oh my God, you know.
Mm,
So that to me was definitely really emotionally draining, and as an editorial period to work with that footage. Of course, Khadim Hussain Rizvi and the stuff that he said was really terrifying as well. But I will also say
yeah,
this about Khadim Hussain Rizvi. He was a scary guy, but he was also like kind of funny. And he genuinely did believe in what he believed in, you know? And maybe that's what made him so scary. That he didn't he wasn't just like just a political figure, which he was. But what it made him really, really scary was I remember one of the first times we met him, he told us,
mm,
our production crew, because there was a huge, basically, hajoom of people trying to kiss his
mm,
hand, touch him, and whatever. And they're saying, "Sir, आपकी वोट तो हम हमारी जो वोट है वो तो आपके साथ है and all of that. And हम कुछ भी करने को लिए आपको लिए तैयार हैं आप हम मरने को तैयार हैं आपके लिए and all these things were being promised, right?
mm.
So he basically retorted and said कि मरो नहीं मुझे तुम्हारी वोट चाहिए." right?
Yeah,
And and क्या तुम लोग देख नहीं सकते? Then he was like telling क्या ये मुल्क देख नहीं सकता कि हम तो यहाँ पे basically करबला लड़ रहे हैं, which is crazy,
yeah,
right? He was comparing
yeah,
himself to the Prophet's relatives and the historical, Karbala, and that he kind of equated himself to that. Like that's how big his ego was. Ironically, by the way, so did Maulana Abdul Aziz, which is funny because they come from like a Wahhabi, like a Salafist strain. But
Yeah.
even they were saying, we're fighting bigger battles than Karbala here, in the Lal Masjid. So it was a really kind of crazy ego-driven thing, you
I
know?
don't know, you use the word ego. I wonder if I'd use the word ego because actually what's remarkable about your films is the way you're able to, as you said, humanize these really um, polarizing figures who are generally flattened in the discourse about them, but actually at heart, they were all well educated, well read, and driven and ambitious men. So Khadim Hussain Rizvi could speak Punjabi, Arabic, Persian, Urdu, English. He wrote books. He was actually a storyteller in the way that you're a storyteller. He understood story, he understood character, he understood narrative arc, and he created an arc that of such centrifugal force that the whole country got sucked into it. So I'm not surprised you found him frightening. What did it feel like to be watching someone who was watching you just as avidly?
Oh, I'm kind of used to that now, to tell you the
Mm,
truth. It's when it comes to directing, and these are because there is directing in there. I'm just, but maybe what's the difference between directing a stage play and this is that you're part of the scene, except I'm behind the camera. I'm their scene partner, you know?
mm,
Um, so they're pretty much engaged and reacting to and seeing what I'm doing and seeing. And I try my best to try to be a blank canvas for them to project on, right? And in some instances, and to make them feel really, really comfortable and give them the illusion or the environment that they're in control. Like that's
mm,
always one of the big things that I always do, right? And I also try to connect with them on a level that, is their domain, right? So, for example, with Maulana Abdulaziz, we didn't even begin covering any of the political stuff or even their standoff with the government or the Lal Masjid siege, because I had genuine questions about my own faith and about Islam.
mm,
And that's where we started. I treated him like a Maulvi Saab. कि
mm,
हमें ये करना चाहिए या क्यों ये हम पांच at the most elementary of levels कि हम पांच वक्त नमाज क्यों पढ़ते हैं इसमें क्या है I mean और ये इसके बारे में क्या कहता है कुरान और इसके बारे में क्या कहता है and he was very engaged and I was engaged. I was genuinely interested, to see what his and I think once we kind of established that familiarity and he wanted me to join the Tablighi Jamaat, for example. He thought it'd be a good idea.
mm.
I'm like, I don't know about that, but were we able to kind of open up and traverse the other territory and stuff, and that's the same with Musharraf and almost everyone, all my characters. I
Okay,
have to
that's
find
very
out.
sweet. That's very sweet, and I'm really glad. But the fact of the matter is, you got death threats, didn't you?
Yes, that did happen after the
I
film.
mean, you know.
No, you're talking about the actual directing moment, like when I'm doing it on scene. So when they're watching me or
No,
have
that's valid. Yes.
I was answering that, you know.
No, okay, got it.
But when it comes to, for example, death threats and the film getting banned and all of that, it wasn't from Maulana Abdulaziz or Khadim Hussain Rizvi. It's actually, a lot of their supporters and a lot of the people online who are carefully watching everything, right? So, for example, in the case of Among the Believers, it was released, it had its world premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival,
Hmm.
and it had an overwhelmingly positive response. And BBC, Talking Movies, Variety, everyone gave it 5 stars and was covering it really heavily. And they kind of positioned it as a film which was really chilling and had great access. So I think a lot of the supporters of the Lal Masjid were reacting to that online, where they had knee-jerk reactions without even watching the film, responding to the Western press, being like, "Oh, this is a film that's painting
Yeah.
Islam in a bad light. It's showing Maulana Abdulaziz as a villain and all of these things, right?"
Yeah.
And And so that's where the threats immediately emanated from. Because then I forget the name of the paper, but there was like this really right wing, kind of like religious bent paper
Ummat?
in yeah, that said कि हमने खुफियत तौर पे ये मूवी बनाई है और मौलाना साहब को इन्हें रुस्वा किया है, पता नहीं क्या किया, आई मीन,
Hmm.
तो बना के ये एक मूवी बनाई है. प्लीज एक्सक्यूज माय उर्दू इफ आई एम यूजिंग रॉन्ग वर्ड्स.
जी, go on.
उसमें उसमें क्या हुआ था कि एक तो खुफिया कैमरा कैसे हो सकता है. आई मीन, आई एम प्रीटी कंस्पिक्यूअस, और वो 5 साल से मैं वहां जा रहा हूँ लाल मस्जिद, कहाँ पे मैं खुफिया कैमरा फुल ऑन लाइक क्रू के साथ में बैठा हूँ विद पिक्चर्स. आई मीन कम ऑन, ओके, लाइक आई एम नॉट
Yeah,
ब्लेंडिंग इन द लाल मस्जिद,
yes,
प्लीज. Second of all,
yeah,
तो उसकी वजह से ये सब threats आने लगे ना. It was all just invented narratives based off of like the immediate social media reaction, which is so scary how quick
sensationalist. Yeah,
media can manifest real world consequences. So what,
yeah,
and at the same time, our film got banned by the film censor board. Same time.
yeah,
So it was kind of and 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 it was a kind of a scary time because it was literally a month or so after, Sabine Mahmood was killed, you know,
yeah.
and so what I did was I immediately went to the Lal Masjid and I sat there next to Maulana Aziz and I made him see the film and I recorded him seeing the film and I made him issue a statement. And he
Hmm.
said कि ये इस फिल्म में तो कोई मसला नहीं है, आपने तो बस दोनों हमारे मुआशरे के दोनों पहलू दिखाए हैं, और मतलब हमें तो इसमें कोई मसला नहीं है, आपने जो हकीकत है वो दिखाई है, और हम चाहते हैं कि और दुनिया देखे ये फिल्म.
I've
एंड
seen
सो
that video of you showing him the film,
या
and it is the most absurdly moving short film I think I've seen in a long time.
yeah, but we put it up on YouTube and all of these things because उसी के वजह से the threats dissipated, right? Because it's an ad
Yeah.
hoc scenario. वरना तो वरना तो लोग कह रहे थे कि ये फिल्म उनके खिलाफ है, and ये सब. So I had to go to the source and get him to issue a statement and put it on social media. So that's what we did. And it was also, a huge testament to us where we were brutally neutral. We never tried to editorialize. I mean, we do obviously, but we really do try to show or make a film where if they saw the film, they'd have no problem with it, you know? And he didn't.
Y-
And the
Yeah, and I think
audiences,
that you do that.
yeah.
Yeah, you do that in the film. In fact, you don't just humanize him, I walked away from that film and when I saw it first also really feeling for him because as a Pakistani, I understood what he meant when he said there's no justice in Pakistan, right? His father was killed in front of him
Hmm.
and he
Yes,
said that they'd never been caught. Yeah,
his brother was killed, his son was killed, uh,
yeah,
and they've been used by the state all this time. So I totally get where he's coming from. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So Abdul Aziz, from his perspective, and has been used by the state and lied to, and his faith, his his faith has been manipulated by vested interests, by our country, Pakistan, and by the West, for example, to go do jihad in Afghanistan. And he himself said कि उस जमाने में हमें freedom fighters कहते थे, बाद में हमें terrorists बना दिया, you know?
And he wasn't wrong in saying that, but
No, he wasn't
these
wrong.
were also the people from Jamia Hafsa and others from the Lal Masjid were on the streets harassing people, burning things, and supporting the most unspeakable atrocities. So it's hard to always remember that they're human beings as well.
Right. And I think that's the luxury of long form documentary making, where as opposed to just, news or current affairs, because you're able to delve deeper into your story and get more into nuance and context. Whereas with
Mm.
news, it's just headlines. It's just very two-dimensional, right? And it's that very specific moment in time.
Yeah. He's not the only person that's complicated. All the characters that you dwell on are complicated. I have to say that I found the most one-dimensional, straight up, absolutely no, I have no time for you, person was the spokesperson in The Accused of the Anti-Blasphemy Lawyers Forum. This gent said, if foreign governments stopped giving asylum to people accused of blasphemy, cases of blasphemy would be reduced by 90%. I'd welcome your take on it. The idea of enduring loss and suffering to gain asylum, where is something a lot of diasporic Pakistanis have to deal with. I don't mean people like us, I mean the invisible diaspora. And there is an invisible Pakistani diaspora, and that's people like
Absolutely.
Asia Bibi.
There is an
So
invisible diaspora.
there
Yeah.
is an
Sorry.
invisible diaspora. I wanted to ask you about a choice you made in this film. You
Mhm.
muted the sound of the Qari narrating the words that Asia Bibi was supposed to have used. Did that
Mhm.
happen after or before you received death threats for making this film, which I think you also received death threats for this film, right? The Accused, Damned, and Devoted.
Well, there were members of our crew that were definitely antagonized, but no, we didn't receive overt death threats into the media and all that like we did among the believers because we were a little more cagey about the release of this film. It was so, I mean, I don't need to tell you like just what happened earlier, like last month, I believe, with that lady in Lahore at the market,
Yeah.
it would be irresponsible of me and for my subjects and my crew and myself, my friends, my family, to be so vocal about this specific film and showing it all over in Pakistan. I have shown it all over Pakistan, by the way, but in
Mm.
like much more smaller circles, very specific groups and things like that. And I didn't mute this, what the Qari Saab said, um, uh, after the film came out or anything like that. I made that conscious choice during the edit, and even when we were shooting it, I knew that this is going to have to be muted for sure. I don't believe in censorship, but I also
Mm.
don't need to encourage violence and unnecessary violence, right?
Would you have
Or
made the same decision at the beginning of your filmmaking career?
I think so. I think anyone from Pakistan has that wherewithal to a
Mm.
be familiar enough with the law. First of all, I shot that in Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
So so technically, had I let that in, myself and my crew and everyone, we there could be an argument or a case made to apply you know 241C, the blasphemy law, on us.
Yeah, because you can't even repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why would I do that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Second
Yeah.
of all, I didn't want this poor Kari Saab to get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
And so 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 I would have known that even at a younger age. I mean, I wouldn't jump into this so recklessly. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. No, सही बात है.
Yeah.
सही बात है. I think I was getting confused with death threats because of the person who received death threats and in this trilogy was Pervez Musharraf, right? Who was the subject of your 2017 documentary, Inshallah Democracy. I don't mean because of your documentary, Inshallah Democracy,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean that, that was his life for towards the end of it.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
the opening of Inshallah Democracy. It's the TV screen when Musharraf's coup unfolds and it says, the government has been dismissed. General Musharraf has taken over. Please remain calm. So, I
Yes.
mean, this was the most overtly personal of your films. All your films are personal in a way, but this is the most overtly personal. So, I'm not going to
Hmm.
give away too much of it because everyone should watch it, like they should watch all your films. But
Hmm.
when Musharraf took over, did you remain calm? What was your reaction?
I was, I think, 18 or 19 at the time, and I thought, well, also I was not politically mature. I was coming from the context of the propaganda that establishment had fed us. That the civilian politics and politicians are all corrupt and they're horrible, and the army can actually run the country better, right? And I
Mm,
wasn't some big fan of the army, but our civilian politicians were corrupt. It was a totally corrupt and horrible system, right? I mean, I grew up in the 90s,
Mm.
where there was like swapping chairs of PMLN and PPP parties. There was increased sectarian violence. There was corruption, and that's basically what I saw. So for me, I was like, oh, okay, so this guy's taken over. He seems kind of quote unquote enlightened and moderate, and there's going to be
Mm.
security now. And for me, that was the top priority, safety and security. And he was able to provide that, at least in the cities, um, for the first few years. Now, keep in mind, I'm cognizantly saying that I was politically immature, and I had, like many people in my generation, and of older and younger, fed into this propaganda. कि नहीं नहीं हमारी फौजी सबसे अच्छी है, right?
Mm.
And for me, what I love about Inshallah Democracy is literally it's a story. I'm the main character. It's about me.
Yes, you
It's
are.
about me growing up. It's about my
Yes.
puberty, my
Yeah.
political puberty, you know, and
Yeah.
coming of age, where I'm like, oh, haha, I'm kidding. I don't know what I was talking about, And what a great way to grow up. What a like, I was in such a blessed, privileged position to make friendship with a dictator and in exile, and
Mm.
learning, oh yeah, maybe dictators aren't that great.
Yeah, I mean, you were sitting and having breakfast with him and his mom.
Yeah.
He
No,
was,
listen, I am a huge fan of Musharraf. I mean, I am under no illusion of the
mm,
political problems, the and the human rights abuses and everything but that's how life is. It's so complex, right? It's not black and white. Like, I hate this person, I love this person, right? If Musharraf was some headline news to me or someone that I saw in the news, maybe
yeah.
then I would have that reaction, but I didn't. I had a very personal reaction. And at one time, he was my hero, and then I met him, and I'm like, oh my God, what was wrong with me?
Mm,
you know
nahi,
and what was so pure about that, it wasn't it wasn't intaken through any news or anything like that had been fed to me through coverage of him. It was first person stuff that I was seeing unfold and happen in front of me. For example, I don't want to give away stuff that happens in the movie, but like when
mm,
Osama bin Laden got caught, and
yeah,
and Musharraf's, that happened in front of me, and
yeah.
his reaction. So
I mean,
so
some
yeah,
of the fly on the wall stuff you capture in that documentary is just, I mean, it fills me with tremendous sorrow, more that your films are not widely available in Pakistan. I think that
that,
they would function as crucial witness bearing to such a critical time in our development and
mhm.
our collective decision on who we are. Two
Thank
moments from Inshallah Democracy really touched me. The first is this exchange you have with your security guard, Kareem.
you. Yeah.
You used the word transcend earlier, something, and I actually used the word transcend in my notes on that moment because
Mhm.
this journey that you're talking about, your own personal journey, is
Mhm.
basically encapsulated in that exchange. And it's for me, it that particular exchange between you and Kareem is why your films will endure, and it's really
Thank you.
beautiful. And the second is when you're standing in the burnt out husk of Nishat Cinema in Karachi
Mhm.
after a mob has burnt it down, and you are hurt, you are angry, and you are doing something about it. And you've been doing something about it ever since. You're constantly championing Pakistani storytellers. It's just, it's beautiful. That Nishad Cinema thing, it made me want to ask you a question about the role of the political in the life of an artist.
Mhm.
So I think these days in particular, we have to often publicly wrestle with the question of whether we have a responsibility to be political. Do you
Mhm.
think we do?
I always thought and always avoided to get too political because I always preferred being frivolous to some extent. And I'm cognizant when I say that I preferred being frivolous, that it was kind of maybe my own mask or defense mechanism that was kind of ingrained in me. Because if you look at all the actions and everything I've done are remarkably political, right? So, for example, I can tell you about one of the projects that I'm working on right now, right?
Bataएं, please.
Okay. By the way, as you could tell with Inshallah Democracy, it was much more tonally different, right? It was a little more political satire. At least I was trying to make it more lighter and kind of go more down that way. But
Well,
one
we
of the
saw
problems,
you
yeah. Because I turned out to be more compelling than Musharraf. I mean, that's the other thing. In my opinion, I was like, because that was must because I was never supposed to be in the film, never, you know. But what was most compelling was, oh wait, what's happening to me is more interesting rather than
Yeah.
a minute pure entire completed cuts उठा के फेंक दिए, you know.
Seriously?
That film
Oh
took
my,
7 years. I was editing for 4 years. I
oh my
wrote
God.
3 entire versions of, let's say, pretend you're writing a book. I did 3 complete finished edits. I'm like,
Wow.
no, I threw them away. And then I made myself the main character. And then it
Wow, that's
clicked. I'm like, ah,
amazing.
this is good. Let's do this. I'm really proud of that film because it's actually one of the most challenging films I've ever done, just in terms of technique and craft, you know?
Yeah, because you had to be the DOP yourself as well. You're a producer, writer, director, and the director of
Yeah.
photography.
Yeah. So, but anyway, going back to what you were saying about the political. So one of the films that I'm doing right now is also a personal narrative. It was commissioned to me to look at overreach of homeland security in the US against Muslims and how Muslims are vilified. And that's particularly important during our current, scenario. And it's unfolding as we speak in what happened. But the film actually looks at me. It looks at me as a Muslim media maker that came of age in this post 9/11 world, and
Yeah,
how I don't want to make this film. But very much like
interesting.
American fiction, I'm being forced to make this film.
Oh God, I
Where,
love American fiction. It is so
yeah,
funny.
yeah. And so I'm being forced to make this film about terrorism, and I don't want to make this film about terrorism. It's the
That
film.
sounds so interesting. I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch it. I want to watch it.
So it's a personal journey. Let's see what happens. So I'm recording myself making this film and making this film.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So that kind
Yeah.
of answers my question. But do you think
Yeah.
that some forms demand more
So
of
it is
it than
political.
others?
It has to be
Because,
political.
yeah, that film is obviously very political, the one you just described. But do you think that the form that you work in demands an engagement with politics?
I think nonfiction, the main crux of it is tanqeed. It's criticism. And a lot of that, when you're looking or holding up a mirror to society, a lot of that does involve either some social justice themes, which all easily spill into the political. I mean, there's a huge overlap in that. That's what the form is.
Oh, how interesting. I've
Um,
never thought of it that way.
and I mean, that was something that I realized early on in my career is that when people are like, "आप लोग ये पाकिस्तान को बदनाम कर रहे हैं ऐसी चीजें बना के," and all of that, I'm like, but if we were Brazilian and I was a Brazilian filmmaker, I would probably be making a film holding the government accountable. And that's what a lot of
Mm,
my contemporaries and colleagues have done from all around the world. It's not that because they hate their country, they're activists. They're trying to hold the country accountable, and they're trying
mm,
to hold the country accountable and bring change. So that I mean, look at Michael Moore. He's American. What does he do? Is he anti-American? Many people on the right would argue, yes, he is anti-American, but he's holding his government responsible and his country and folks responsible, right? That's the nature of the beast, you
That's
know.
a compelling position to take. I'm going to now watch every documentary through that prism and see if it applies.
No, I mean, look, there's other documentaries too that are personal and more like nature documentaries, and then there's also, other documentaries
Mm,
that certainly transcend that, where it's like a personal doc or like a feeling doc, like Grizzly Bear or Blooms County or Grey Gardens. There's a lot of those kinds of docs too, that are beautiful, that are looking at personal stories. The
yeah.
Eternal Memory, for example, which just came out from Chile. It's about a wife losing her husband to Alzheimer's. It's about a love story, which is a really devastating disease. I'm sure you know. I
Yes.
mean, my mom has Alzheimer's right now. That's what that story is about. So it's not always political. It doesn't have to be, but a huge bunch of it is political because it's about criticism. It's about holding your country accountable. But one of the documentaries I'm making right now, besides the one that I told you, is an action comedy.
An action
And
comedy documentary. Interesting.
yeah, there is some political undertones to it, but very slight.
Okay.
It's much more an action film. So,
So I
very,
actually read in that same interview that you referenced earlier that your
Mhm.
first love was theater, right?
Yes. Still
So I
is.
was going to ask you, and I have a theory about theater people because,
Mhm.
my partner is a playwright and he's a theater person. And some of my favorite people in the whole world have been theater people. And I think it's because you guys understand that life is drama. So you're happy swimming in drama and
Huh.
you are flexible and can accommodate different ways of being in a way that the rest of us can't.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I
Do
never.
you think I'm just talking nonsense?
No, I mean, they are dramatic. That's true. I mean,
Well, not necessarily dramatic themselves, but they understand drama and that's just the nature of life, and the rest of us are more obtuse and we don't understand it until it's too late.
well, they're definitely drawn to drama. That's true. They gravitate towards it. That's certainly true. But it also
You know,
does give
in
it
no,
gives
sorry,
us
go
a
on.
perspective also in the
Mm.
sense that and I think this is where the overlap with drama and writing and also with documentary kind of comes. It's all about observation and perception and imagining other people's lives or imagining other people, right? Whether it's
I think
because, yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, it's something just to kind of ponder on. I don't have any definitive thing on it, but like, for example, every artist has something that compels and drives them. Of course, for me, there is something activist based. There is something trying to transcend my own circumstances, possibly to try to make the world a better place, right? But there's also a big part of it that's also avoidant, right? Where
Mm.
sometimes I'm blind to myself and I try to see myself in other people always, just so I learn it's about my own internal journey as well.
And I'm hearing the words that you're using, like activist and drama, and I'm actually thinking of how strong and visceral the presence of children is in your body of work, and how, in a way, children have functioned as the moral conscience in all your films. And I wonder if what we now understand to be activism, if we just change that word and think of it as wanting to be in a childlike state where, you play act, you run through different ways of being, and you constantly fighting the good fight. I wonder if it's that.
Mm, that's a
This
very
is
astute point.
No, I'm just a
Uh,
fiction writer, man. I just talk BS all the time. You go ahead and you make the film, and I'm just talking nonsense.
oh no,
But no, I'm serious about the importance of children in your work. It's there's something in the tension between what they see and how we see them that really forces us to engage with the most inconvenient of realities. And I think
yeah.
it's another reason your films are so valuable. You preserve the innocence of a generation which has been erased from the official narrative.
Right. I don't think it was like a conscious choice to build a lot of narratives around children. And in
Mm.
one or two, well, two films for sure, but one film, well, actually, no, actually that's true. In a lot of films, there's children who are being manipulated or used or being put into horrible situations,
Yeah.
And and I think and maybe I'm wrong, but I think your line of questioning is taking me to Pakistan's Hidden Shame, one of the most tragic films I've ever made in my life. I've only seen that
Yes.
film maybe twice, once perhaps. That's it. I don't like to watch that film.
It's a hard
It,
film to watch.
it's an excruciatingly tough film to watch. And I can genuinely tell you I suffered from immense PTSD after making that film. Holy crap. Did that
Yeah.
send me into a really negative spiral for several years? Just to kind of give your audience context, this is a film that focuses on the lives of extremely poor, underprivileged street children in the city of Peshawar who are stuck in a cycle of poverty, drug use, and sexual abuse and prostitution. And the decisions that some of these kids make were horrifying. And the things that I saw were, I can't even, I mean,
Yeah, I don't think you should.
imagine it.
Yeah,
But just to reference, like, for example, like 12-year-old boys prostituting 8-year-old boys for money,
yeah.
like 20s. Just so you kind of understand the world that this was in. And the fact that I was even gotten, not that I'm a Imran Khan supporter from any corner, but the fact that I got at that time, the PTI government to actually care and open up a shelter home for boys, and they credit watching my film.
Yeah.
Imran Khan himself credits watching my film for him being inspired to open up the shelter home for boys.
Is it still open, that shelter? Did it open?
It did open. Zaman Kaur is what it was called. Is it still open? I don't know. The fact is, and you can counter argue and say it was cosmetic and whatever, that's fine. That's great. But agar from my understanding, at least that first few months or year that it ran, it did actually house a lot of boys who were street children and gave them some modicum of education, kept them off the streets, got them off drugs and these kinds of things. So if I was able to help one child, as dramatic and whatever as that sounds, then I think I did my job well, you know?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So I don't know, I went off on some tangent, but so for children and making, so there's that, and then there's other children who are being used pawns in an ideological warfare, like in Al Masjid, or they're being indoctrinated into violence, like they are in The Accused, right?
Yeah,
Or they're being trained and being empowered to facilitate change and be warriors like they are in Shame, you know, Mukhtar Mai and the children that
yeah.
she's maybe because well, and you're talking specifically about Pakistan Sit in Shame and some of my earlier work. I don't think this is just Pakistan. I think children all over the world are similarly manipulated and used by society and adults to carry out
Yes.
agendas. They don't necessarily have their own agency or their own understanding or what's happening, right? And maybe they carry a lot of that guilt for maybe what happened to them in the context of, for example, sexual abuse, that it was their fault, you know? And I'm not trying to get very personal or whatever, but I mean that's something that I was trying to unpack and work out through my films, you know?
In Among the Believers, Maulana Abdul Aziz in the Lal Masjid, one of the Qari says of these children कि they're very malleable at this age, right? इनको जिस रुख पे
Exactly.
आप मोड़ देते हैं वो उसी रुख पे चलते हैं for the rest of their lives.
Exactly. It's
और
and that's what it was, and that was the fact. And the fact that one of the girls in that Zarina was able to kind of see that and take her own destiny into her own hands and escape the Lal Masjid, that was kind of amazing. You know what I mean?
I do, but then I also I was shattered when she got married. She was a child bride, and then it says at the
Yeah.
end that she had a daughter. How do you know what happened to Zarina? Do you know what happened to Talha, who loved Shahid Afridi but wasn't allowed to
I
watch
don't know what
cricket?
happened to Talha, but I think Zarina is obviously a lot older now. I think she's in her mid 20s, late 20s. She's a mom a few times over. I mean, I don't like to directly be in touch with some of
Yeah,
the characters because I don't want to, interfere in their lives anymore. But
yeah.
I get updates here and then from like the local village fixers and people that we've worked with who live in the village and who also work with us on our production.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds wise to not. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you about Naim because I was haunted by Naim for about a day after I watched
Yeah,
Pakistan's.
name I have not. I actually do. I have been in touch with with Hafiz Saab who runs the Ayaz Saab, sorry, who runs the shelter home for boys in that we
Yeah.
featured, and he kept on giving me yearly annual updates. I think the last I heard maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago was that he was working in a mechanic shop with his brother and
Okay.
obviously he's a lot older now. He's in his 20s, mid 20s. He was also one of the most terrifying people I've ever met in my life,
Hmm.
more so than even I would argue Khadim Hussain Rizvi.
Why was he
And
so terrifying?
because he would do whatever it took to survive,
Hmm.
and maybe when we talk about morality and how we treat other people, maybe we are very privileged in so many ways that we can actually talk that way and do that, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
you've never been put in a position where you have to, God forbid, sell yourself just so
Yeah,
you can have lunch or sell other 8-year-olds just
yeah,
so you can secure a house for the week,
yeah,
We've never been put in that position. And the fact
yeah,
that he can do that to other kids and become kind of an abuser himself, right? That to me was terrifying,
yeah,
like zero empathy, like none. And I'm not saying that he was a sociopath. I just think he had suffered such immense abuse and just the most horrendous life that empathy had been destroyed or killed out of him. And so that's why he was terrifying to
How long did it take you as a filmmaker to learn to master your own emotions and to detach from the material and then return to your human self?
me. I don't think I've still learned that, to tell you the truth. I can
That's
tell you
good.
during the production of Pakistan's Hidden Shame, while I was filming, I really, really strongly compartmentalized what they were saying to me and whatever. And I pretended that this is, for me, the camera was a shield. I was removed. It was, although
Mm.
I wasn't, I was right there. but I was able to kind of detach from the craziest confessions and stories they were telling me. It was almost after we were done filming, and almost immediately I would feel immensely anxious, depressed, terrified, something, you know?
Mm.
And and it was one of the most shortest production periods I've ever had. Like, you know, I followed production people for years and years. That I could only tolerate for 3 weeks, max a month. I couldn't do more. And even the edit was short because I couldn't tolerate the footage and do too much of it. But after the film was done and even aired and came out and all these things happened, I think that paranoia and all that that really repressed anxiety or whatever I had like tried to repress during filming all came out. And it stayed with me for several years.
Mm.
Uh, I mean, yeah, it was terrible. Frankly, I mean, to be candid, I ended up gaining like almost 100 pounds. I mean, I'm already a big guy, and you know, I resorted to just the most worst lifestyle and food choices and whatever just to kind of calm myself down.
That must have been really, it probably feels horrible to hear at the
Yeah,
best of times, but at a time like that, to hear the inevitable comments about Pakistan ki naak katwa di duniya mein, etc., etc. And people get very defensive when films about horror and particularly stuff around children, like even the Kasoor scandal, for example.
yeah.
Pakistanis get very defensive and say, "Why are you, washing our dirty linen in public?" So
Well, if
that's a
you,
trauma.
I mean, if you kind of, yeah, it compounds the trauma. Actually, it's really messed up. But I mean,
Yeah.
we have to face it. We have to make those changes. And you know, I remember hearing about all these kinds of stories even when I was really, really young.
Yeah.
How casual we are about just kind of sweeping it under the rug and all that. So when you silence someone and you I mean, that's why the film is called, my initial film was called Shame, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about silencing. In fact, initially in the movie, they would have preferred the village and her family that she just committed suicide and just kind of
Yeah.
away somewhere. But that's not going to change society. That's not going to, you have to face your demons, and Pakistan has to face its demons collectively to change.
Absolutely. And I think you've done such a fantastic job of preserving those demons in film for people to have to look at some point in time, whether they want to or not. I
Yeah.
want we're nearly out of time again. It's been so easy talking to you that it's just disappeared.
Thank you.
I,
I do also have to, I have another meeting soon, so I do have
so I'm
to
going
leave.
to ask you one last question, which is in all your time making documentaries about Pakistan across the spectrum, what's your favorite Pakistani election song?
Oh, by far the Tariq-e-Lagbak one, you know?
What?
Yeah, it's so fun. And it's like, first of all, Tariq-e-Lagbak
That
really
is
did a
such
good
an
job.
unexpected answer, I have to say. Please
Yeah,
tell me more.
because it's so fun and ironic and it's so silly. Like, first of all, it's like has a techno base to it. And if you saw the 2017 siege that TLP did in Islamabad, it was very much like, have you guys seen Mad Max, the remake Warriors?
Yes.
There's this huge contraption that he's up, the villain is sitting up on top, and then there's two loudspeakers with the guys and the guitars. That was literally Khadim Hussain Rizvi doing that, you know? And the music that was blaring that ticket katao jannat mein apni jagah ada karo. So basically a vote for us gets you into heaven.
Wow.
A great
That's
tagline.
ticket
And it's
katao.
set against like techno. I'm like, this is amazing. These rallies are so successful, PTI or and I think TLP picked up on it, is that there's a real need for like concerts and dance parties in Pakistan.
Yes,
There
absolutely. Yeah.
really is just a fundamental need for people just to go out collectively and without shame, just be able to dance and groove to music. That's really just a basic
Yes.
need. It really has
They
nothing to
need to
do with
go. Yeah. There's a shot in one of your films of a school, and the school is called Dream Valley.
yeah.
So Pakistan is a
Yes.
dream valley.
Pakistan is a dream valley. That is a great comparison. It's a great
Well,
reference.
listen, thank you so much for giving me so much of your time. And it was such a pleasure talking to you. I hope it's not the last time.
Thank you so much, Shandana.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye bye.